Hi, everyone. This is Dee with My Money Story Podcast, and today I am interviewing a dear friend of mine, Cynthia Alvarez Cagle, about her home buying experience with her husband, Mark. So, check out Cynthia's video here and also Mark's separate video. We recorded two different interviews with both of them because, as we know, couples see things from totally different perspectives even as they are working together on a big goal. So it's really interesting to hear Cynthia's take and Mark's take separately. So let's join Cynthia's interview already in progress.
Okay, well, I can tell you that growing up in my own house, like my dad and my grandpa built my house that I grew up in. So we always owned our house. That was always like a goal, right? Like the dream. Like I want to have a house of my own.
Mhm.
So when I came here to the US about 20 years ago, obviously I did not have the money to do that right away. So I was always pretty much either in renting like an apartment. I lived with my grandmother for a little bit, but then after that, rented apartments. A friend of mine that I was working for, it was a family and they let me stay for a year in their guest house for free. But all the time, the goal was always be able to get my own place eventually. Because of different circumstances, that didn't really happen. I always kept us just renting and renting and renting. And then basically it was when I started with Percy's actually that I had kind of in my mind, I said, okay, now I have a good stable job. I need to start separating some money to purchase a house. And I had a couple of other friends like my friend Jennifer and like just knowing people there at Percy's like you that you own your own house. Elizabeth that went from having, renting for I don't know how many years to owning her own house and stuff like that. It just seemed like, okay, it's possible. Thankfully, though, in the midst of all this, I met Mark. So now it became like a joint effort. So when we first met and all that, obviously we were both renting. So it was, we were just continued to rent. When we moved in together, we moved into his apartment. And when it was time to renew the lease, we decided to rent an apartment together. And that's when we moved into the Westchester area. After living in there for a year and a half, we really liked it so much, like the area itself. It's very convenient. So that's when we decided that instead of keeping like paying rent continuously, we should look into buying a house. We were kind of ready for that. So that's when we started to look into purchasing a house. And we knew we wanted something around the same area because we just enjoy it so much. So that's when we started looking.
Okay. And how did you pick your realtor?
So that was kind of a just luck of the draw, just because is the husband of one of my friends.
Oh, cool.
So unfortunately, I don't talk to that friend anymore. But her husband is the one that helped us buy this house. I will say that we weren't 100% happy with him just because we felt that even though he assured us that everything would be the same as a paying client and all that kind of stuff, and he did get a commission, but maybe not as much as he would have or something. And I don't know if his wife just kind of made him do it. I'm not sure, but we weren't 100% super happy with the whole experience. But we did find a house though. I think if we hadn't found the house when we did, we probably would have switched realtors.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but he did a good job and he did go to bat for us on a few things when we bought the house.
Oh, okay. So you had some negotiations that he did take care of. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's good. That part's good. So, what was it about that particular house? I mean, or can you explain the day when you just kind of knew, like,
Oh yeah, no, I remember it very clearly. So we looked at several houses in one day, and there were houses that we walked in and we went through the whole house and then said, no, this is not for us. There were houses that we went in, and as soon as we went in, we went out because we was like, nope, we don't even want to walk around this house. We already know. When we came into this house, we both had just kind of like, we didn't really give away any emotions. But afterwards, when we talked about it, we realized that we both had a really good vibe, feeling, I don't know what to call it, when we walked into the house. and we just loved it. We walked the whole house, even though we knew there were some issues, like not necessarily any big issues, but we knew we were going to have to like maybe paint, maybe update some things and stuff like that. The feeling was just really good. And it was so funny because we've been watching like House Hunters for like decades, you know, separately, and then of course together we've been watching it for a few years. And this thing that everybody calls, you know, the character and the character and the character, and we're like, oh my god, these people are crazy, you know, like what are they talking about? What character? Like immediately when we both walked into this house and started looking around, it was like, oh my god, I love the character.
Exactly. And I can attest to this because I've been to your house many times and you fed me many times in that house, and that house is perfect.
Yes.
It's
so
yeah, from the curb to the inside, there's character, and it's very, and you just feel at home in it.
Right. And it wasn't even decorated or nothing. So, you know, adding your personal things and everything just made it better. Yeah. But it was already good the way it was. Mm-hmm. So we were so tired already of this whole house hunter thing. And if any marriage survives house hunting, it's a marriage that's going to last for a few years, you know, because God bless. it's somebody, you know, they should sell like a package together, a realtor with a psychiatrist or psychologist or marriage counselor or something.
Right.
Because God bless, sometimes it can be pretty difficult, you know.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we both felt so good about this house, but we didn't say anything to each other. It wasn't until we were done and we were back at the apartment that we brought it up, and he was like, well, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I don't know. I mean, it's a nice house and everything. Well, what do you think? And he's like, yeah, it's a nice house. And then I'm like, so, and he's like, it's got character, right? And I'm like, oh my God, yes, it's got so much character. Like, I love the house. And he's like, I loved it too. Like, but we didn't want to say anything before. So that's what really made us decide on this house. The price was good. The size of the house was good for us at the time. The fact that it's kind of like in a curved street, kind of like, even though you have right next to each other, it's really private the way the house sits in the lot and everything. So we just loved it, and that's why we decided to buy this one.
That's cool, and it's in a very nice neighborhood, and it's super accessible to shopping and to everything that's cool, and all the good restaurants and all that, and the freeways. And
yeah, I love the location. I know that we're gonna be buying a new house in the next year or so, and that we're probably gonna move locations. But I'm really sad about that because I would love to move somewhere around here. Yeah. But Mark doesn't want to.
Yeah.
Yeah, and probably not a bad idea because the locations that are nice around here are kind of more higher end, like, you know, Memorial and, you know, those type of neighborhoods. Mm-hmm. So probably kind of out of our range for now.
But that's okay, because I'm sure you can find something that after you know, find the right place, it'll be like, oh yeah, I can work with this. This will be just
yeah. But the location is great.
Yeah, it is. So what about the home buying process, if anything at all, made you afraid, like, I don't know if we can do this, or I don't know if we're gonna get past this hump?
I think the biggest thing was going so many times back and forth between the realtors, negotiating, you know, a few things. One of them, the house has had some like foundation work, and we have the certificate that everything is good and all that, but and then some of the outdated stuff in the house, and of course, honestly speaking, Mark just wanted, you know, the best. So every time they would come back with an offer, he would be like, no, go back and say this. I'm like, oh my God, enough is enough. Like, how many times do you want to go back and forth about this? Jesus Christ. So that was probably the most stressful part of it, and then the going back and forth with the, I don't know what they call it, the underwriting agents, and the, to get approved. Oh good lord, we had to probably submit so much stuff to get approved for the loan and everything. And the different types of loans that are out there, it was kind of stressful and very, trying to find the information in a way that we could understand it.
Really?
Of the different types of loans and what it means and all that kind of stuff was a little bit difficult. We did the house under his name only as first-time home buyers, so we could get some of those incentives. So I'm assuming that because of that, we had to submit even more information about ourselves, and that was like another going back and forth, trying to submit all this stuff, trying to get done the things that needed to get done. We had to take a couple of online classes and stuff like that to qualify, and which was not a problem. It's just, it was a pretty long process, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I think that was some of the most difficult things about buying the house.
And so when you say that you didn't have clear information about the types of loans and all that, the finance company didn't lay that out for you? They didn't make it very clear for you?
Well, they didn't at first. They kind of just send you information via email, and they tell you, well, this is what it is. And then as you read through it, it just was not very clear. Like, okay, this is what you're getting yourself into. At the end it was, but like, it just seems like it could be a simpler process to get the information you need. You always have to read the little, the small print, obviously. And anytime you get any papers that you need to sign and all that stuff, you should be reading them very carefully. But to initially get the information of, these are the different loans out there, these are the differences, these are the good and the bad things about each of them, this is what would fit you best, or, stuff like that. It was just a little bit difficult to get that information. However, this has been 6 years. So, and again, even though he did his job in a lot of ways, I'm not sure that our realtor really was fully, maybe educated is not the right word, but fully immersed in all of this stuff at that time. I'm not sure.
Okay.
So, but eventually we got the information we needed, and, got the house.
Okay, gotcha. Well, I hate you had that experience though, because I know I've only bought one house, and it was a pretty good experience. And I'm such a planner and a list maker, and I want to know everything ahead of time before it even, comes my way and all that stuff. And I wore her out, bless her heart, but she pretty much gave me a lot of info. But on the few things where I was like, why isn't this simpler? Why aren't they like spelling this out? That can be frustrating. It can be very frustrating. Yeah.
And again, it was probably our realtor, just like I said, I think that when you're not getting paid, or when you're doing this as a favor, even though you may be getting paid, I don't know, maybe, like I said, I don't think it was the best option.
Yeah, but even if somebody takes a lower commission or something like that, you should never feel it, because they have a fiduciary responsibility to do everything that's in your best interest.
Right. And I just think we didn't get that 100%.
Yeah.
Because of the circumstances, not because of anything else.
Right.
So,
right. Okay.
Yeah.
So now that you're in the house, has it lived up to, all of your expectations?
For the most part, yes. But little by little, we have been, outgrowing it. With having the home business and all that stuff, it has made it where I really need an office for myself. So that was a little bit challenging. And then Mark needs an office for himself. Thankfully, right now he just works from home little by little, like occasionally. So it's not like he needs a whole full office for himself. But at the same time, when we first bought the house, he was still going to school. So he was in his office like pretty much a lot of the time. So that was, it was nice to have the space for that. But if we wanted to have each of us our own office now, we wouldn't have space to do like a guest bedroom for when my mom comes to visit. So that's one of the things that is making us want to buy a bigger house. Plus he wants a pool. So we don't have a pool here. So he wants a pool. And I think a little bit bigger house would be good in case we decide that we want to grow our family or adopt more dogs.
Either way.
But I would love having a second like living room area, or like, you know, like because we're not formal people, so it's not that we need a formal living room. But I think sometimes when he wants to watch his stuff, it would be nice for me to be able to watch my stuff, which sounds ridiculous because right now we have TVs on every single room, and I could just go to one of the rooms. But it's not the same. I don't want to lay on my bed at 6 o'clock in the afternoon watching TV, you know. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I would like to have a couple of entertaining areas. I guess, you know, a couple of living rooms, that would be nice, and a bigger kitchen, a better laid out kitchen. It doesn't necessarily have to be bigger, just better laid out.
Okay, that's a nice kitchen though, but yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, it's a pretty good size, but the way it's laid out, we don't really have a lot of counter space to prep and do stuff like that. So sometimes when we're both in there, it's like, like, get out of my way.
Yeah, I hear you. When I have friends or family pre-COVID come over and cook or something like that, I have these catering tables back when I used to cater, and I pull those out to give, because the counter space just
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This one, yeah, not in this one.
So but it has been a great house so far.
That's good. That's good. So, what advice do you have for someone who might be renting right now and kind of afraid or leery of getting started in the process, especially from the financial side?
I think the best advice I could give is that you want to make sure that you have enough savings just to be able to move into the house. Enough money for a couple of months mortgage payments, enough money to get all of your utilities started, especially if they require some kind of deposit.
Mm-hmm.
And things that people don't usually think about is a little bit of money just for the odds and ends things that you're going to need when you move into a house. Whether it's repairing something or fixing something, whether it's making something prettier so you can live in it, or just buying, like, you know, regular things like shower curtains or, you know, toilet brush or whatever it is that you're going to need when you move. So start separating, like just putting away some money just for that. And then maybe once you know you want to go ahead and buy a house and you're getting closer, maybe start buying things on sale that you know you're going to need or that you're going to want. Anything from, again, you know, cleaning supplies or any of that kind of stuff, all the way to decorating things. Sometimes you go to the store and you're like, oh, I would love this. Yeah, but I don't have my house. It's going to be another 6 months. Well, maybe sometimes it's worth getting that. And that's kind of like, okay, I have it. It's my goal. I'm going to get my house. And then in 6 months from now, you may not find it again. And you'll regret not getting it because you really wanted that stuff for your house. So just having those little things, I think it would help. But definitely saving enough money for that, for those expenses, I think it's a smart thing to do.
I completely agree, because you don't want to do anything by the skin of your teeth and just barely having enough. You want to have a cushion, you know, and hopefully once people learn how to get that cushion, they'll learn that, okay, well, I don't need to live without a cushion ever again.
Right.
Cushions
I
are
agree.
important. Yeah. Because
and that you don't need to have everything brand new, super high end, and all that stuff when you first move in. You know, it's okay to get you know, maybe even a used set of couches or from friends or family. You know, once you are in the house and you're settled in after a month or a couple of months, and you have taken care of the expenses of moving in and getting the house settled, then you can start like saying, okay, this is how much money I have. This is what I would like to buy first, and then start getting stuff that you really want versus what you just need in the meantime.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. And even I remember I was talking to someone else about this, about how you know, they moved in and the place was empty. And I was like, well, that's perfectly fine. You have, you have your bedroom set up, you have your kitchen set up. Okay, that's great. So you don't know what furniture you want. Because to me, sometimes even if you can afford all the furniture that you want, sometimes you have to live in a space for a few weeks or a couple of months and feel the space, you know, feel the character.
yeah, agreed.
Before you really know what you want to surround yourself with and spend your hard-earned money on.
Yep.
So whether it's because you can't afford it just yet, okay, well, if it's that you're not going to be able to afford it at all, okay, well, if somebody has a couch you can take, like you said, great, that's fantastic. And then when you can afford something else, great. You haven't been sitting on the floor for the first year.
Yep,
like I
exactly.
did, like I did in my first apartment. you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. But I think that's the good part of home ownership. It teaches you a different level of saving and a different level of living with a cushion.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's a good thing, that teaches you those things, because they definitely, owning your own home, it definitely changes things. One of the key things is that I'm lucky enough to have Mark that's pretty handy. But at the same time, there's a lot of things that have happened that we've had to pay somebody to come in and repair or replace. And it's good to have that little bit of extra money that we set aside for things like that. So we're not digging into our regular savings or into the regular money in the checking account or anything like that. So one thing that I always thought to myself watching all this, house hunters and type of shows, was I never want to be house poor. Like, I don't want to have a house and then have nothing in it and not be able to sustain it, because then obviously it's not going to be good in the long run. So having a little bit of money aside all the time just for repairs like that has been really a lifesaver.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so important. I think that when it all comes together and it feels right, from the person you're buying the home with, to the financing that you get, to the people that you're working with. And, the process is always going to be bumpy. It's always going to make people, nervous or whatever, just because we're human and it's a really big purchase. But
Right.
when it all starts to gel and come together, that's great. But if people, try to buy their first home and on paper it looks like they can afford it, but really they know they can't. And especially if you can't sleep at night,
Yes,
that's a problem.
that's a big thing.
And it's okay to wait and maybe rent for another year or two until, things look a little bit better financially, and then go and jump in.
And also look at alternatives, because you may have this idea in your head of this is what I want, and you're only looking at that type of house or that square footage or that price, and you could be surprised looking for other things that may still fit a lot of the things you want, maybe not everything, but it could be a good initial starter house, and then move to what you really have in your mind as a goal. Because we knew, like, for example, buying this house, we knew it was like, we called it the 5-year plan. We knew we were going to be in this house about 5-6 years and then move to something else. So that's why, with that in mind, we bought this house knowing that it may not have everything we wanted, but eventually we will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's important. That's very important, because some people really have the Taj Mahal in their head from the beginning and will stretch and do whatever to have that. But it's like, no, but you're not ready for that just yet, for for all the reasons, whatever they are. Yeah, I think that's important, always having that alternative.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Is there any other advice that you want to give?
Get a good realtor.
Yeah, that's important.
Somebody that you feel comfortable with, because it can make a huge difference.
Mhm.
And just from talking to other people and friends and stuff like that, one of the key things I've always heard is, how good or bad of an experience they had with a realtor. I think that's a major thing, because buying a house is stressful enough as it is. Like you said, it's always going to be a bumpy kind of road for that. So having a really good realtor that is on your side, that's looking out for you, that's helping you out, I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And somebody who is accessible and has a good attitude and shows up when they say they're going to show up and does what they say
Yeah.
they're going to do, all that stuff is very important.
Yep.
Yeah, for any professional.
So save a little bit of money just for the house and get a good realtor. Those are the two main advices I would give.
Well, that was perfect, Cynthia. Thank you.